I'd like to share with you 3 simple truths that I've sort of uncovered in the last 8 years, trying to awaken elders lost in dementia and young people lost in a world that kind of seems demented as well. 3 truths that I hope will have lessened my loneliness, and I hope it can lessen yours. First truth, life is short. That gentleman just told us how short life can be. You know, we fight this. We dye our hair, we lift our faces. We take our elders and we banish them so we don't have to see them. You know, guys are like, death? No, I'm not worried about death. You know, it's just a tech problem. You know, Google's on it. They're going to solve it, you know. And like if they don't, you know, I'll just upload my mind to the web and I'll live forever in the cloud, you know. Okay. But last year, David Bowie, Leonard Cohen, Prince left us. 3 weeks ago, my mom suffered a massive stroke and fell into a coma. I was afraid she was going to die. Each day, billions of us pass each other with very little empathy that each and every one of us will lose absolutely everything we love. And I started thinking about that. You know, is there a silver lining to this death thing that we all have to experience? And I decided, yes, there is. There is something beautiful about death, and I'll tell you what it is. It shows us how rich we are. Okay, let me illustrate this. Okay, this is going to be the Oprah show now. I'm Oprah, okay? And what I'd like all of you to do is reach underneath your seats, okay? Come on, pull out my present for you all. It's under there. Come on, reach it, pull it out, pull it out. $1 million cash. Is this not the best Oprah show ever? Okay, but hold on. The show's not over. See, now robbers come up behind all of you and they put a gun to your head. And they say your money or your life. Now, raise your hand if this is your answer. All right, my final answer, I'm going to stay with the money. I'm going to stick with the money. Oh, none of you. Oh. So you see what this means? It means each and every one of you already has something worth more than $1 million. You're all millionaires, you know? He understands what it's like to be a millionaire. You know, you might say maybe, but think about it. Leonard Cohen, Prince, Michael Jackson, Andrew Carnegie, Abraham Lincoln, my mother. They would give everything they had for just one more day of what you have beating inside of you. The greatest treasure, the heartbeat of the planet, life. The capacity to feel this treasure, life, I think is the key to ending loneliness. Which brings me to my second rule. Again, one you'll probably say is obvious, but we are the living, the only living, in this most critical of times. If that's true, and we all know this, why do so many of us, live lives half alive? You know, what do? We say things like, I won't care anymore. I'll stay angry. You know, I'll win. I'll succeed. And then no one can hurt me anymore. Or again, you know. So here's the thing. I was incredibly lonely when I was younger. Incredibly lonely. But I thought it was just my story. You know, my brother, when I was 2, got retinoblastoma. It's eye cancer. And my mother looked in his eye, we rushed to the hospital. The doctor said, you've got 1 hour to decide. Do we take out both his eyes and he lives? Or do we take out one eye and there's this new thing, which we haven't really tried, but it's called radiation. And we could shoot radiation into his eye and maybe we could save the eye. You got 1 hour to make this decision. My dad and mom talk it over. They go for the radiation. Miraculously, my brother lives, but he's blind, basically. And so what happens to my family, you can probably guess, in these situations it's pretty normal. They get divorced, It's too much for a family to deal with the almost death of a child. And I guess that would have been okay, but, people were ignorant when I was growing up, My parents, tore our hearts apart in their tug-of-war divorce, And I had to live with never having a mother, I don't know what it's like to have a mother because I went with my dad, and I didn't have a grandmother. I didn't have a village, people to help raise me and heal my sorrows. All I had was a violent and abusive stepmother, and that was very, very hard. It broke my heart. I was crumpled for years. It took me years to raise my chest out of its hole. This way of achieving safety, of hiding inside of yourself and running away from pain and from death. Would David Bowie trade his fortune for that kind of life? How many of you have known great loneliness in your life? Just show of hands, if you don't mind. How many of you have wasted decades of your life in self-hate or in anger, in places like that? Yeah, I see some nodding heads. You've kind of grown out of those spaces. You've discarded it. I'm a filmmaker, and I sort of investigated, how does our culture, deal with loneliness, especially in our elders, especially elders with dementia. I met a 94-year-old man named Henry who'd been sitting in a nursing home in a hallway like this for 10 years. 10 years. 10 years. And the day I met him, we brought him his music from his childhood, music that he hadn't heard in 30 years. And this man, he went, I feel a band of gold, of dreams. I think everyone should come into music right now. I'm a holy man. The Lord gave me this music. And when he woke up like that, it changed my life. In 1 minute, I realized that millions of elders living like this man could at least end their life not in utter despair and loneliness. Making Alive Inside, I learned really incredible things. I learned 69% of our nursing homes are for-profit institutions. That means the more they care, the less they make. Okay? I learned antipsychotic drugs like Haldol are actually profitable because the more drugs you give somebody, the less care you need, and it also boosts your bottom line from selling the drugs. The more I watched these sweet elders attempt to adapt to the boxes they were being asked to live in, the more I started to see them as canaries in the coal mine. The more I started to see them as that they were teaching us what it's like for a living being to be asked to be a thing. How does it feel when you get attacked? How does it feel when you get attacked? When you get treated like a thing? We fade and die. That's what happens to these elders in nursing homes. I've seen it over and over again. They come in and they start to decline. And then looking around, I started to see our kids. And they are in some sort of box as well. And a lot of them are starting to fall into loneliness. Some turn to opioids. Some turn to guns. Some just plod along. How about you guys? Any of you guys kind of feel sometimes like you're just phoning it in? Like the world isn't exactly as rich as it should be? That's where truth number 3 comes in. Life is relationship. Divorce any of us from our relationships, and we begin to fade and die. We live in relationship. That is what music has been trying to teach us ever since we invented it. It's been saying, you are vibratory beings. You live in harmony with all that lives. and you move through time in relationship. We are not what we own. We are not our fancy jobs and our fancy cars. I'll tell you what we are. Where does all the energy in your body come from? Anybody? Anybody? Where's the energy in your body come from? The spark that lights that fires your mind, that beats your heart. Your brain. Huh? Universal life force of chi. Nobody ever said that one. My answer, you're probably actually right, but my answer is the fuel for 99% of all that lives comes from one single source. And it's interesting, nobody said it. It comes from the sun. It comes from the sun. Every time you eat, where is she? Every time you eat vegetables or grains or you're eating processed sunshine. Even meat, you're eating processed sunshine. And what do we do with that sunshine? Where do we put it? We put it in our bodies made primarily of what? Water. What kind of water? Sunshine water. Salt water. Salt water. The exact same percentage of salt that's found in the ocean. So, basically, this is where my friend would always say to me, "Whoa, dude, you mean like we're like walking oceans filled with sunshine? Whoa, man, that's beautiful." And I'd be like, "Yes, it is." But how does it make sense that such a being would feel alone and disconnected from life? Especially since we've won. Every terror that every human has ever felt, we've basically solved. The darkness, we fixed it with light bulbs. Slavery, we fixed it with robots. Oh wait, that's a couple years in the future. Germs, medicine, hunger, agriculture, language, money. My brother's blindness. When he was 13 years old, he had a simple operation, and his sight returned to 20/20. The United Nations has recently determined that ending poverty and hunger is morally right, politically beneficial, and financially possible today. Today. I think we could also end depression, violence, and lastly, loneliness. My buddy would say, "Yeah, finally a hopeful message, Loneliness is what happens to networked beings, which is what we are. We are networked beings. Thank goodness we have, laid fiber between every single human being on this planet right now, which is pretty amazing. So about 2.5 weeks ago, my mother woke up. I was there. I was holding her hand. And I didn't get to know her till I was 20 years old. And I'm holding her hand, and she's looking at me. And in that moment, I realize I have to do it, and I discard all of my anger at her for leaving me that I've held all these years. I just discarded it because I was sitting there and I realized I couldn't be with her fully and still hold on to that anger. So in one moment, I did something we can change. Us humans, we can change. It's really interesting. It's only a lack of courage that keeps us stuck in our outmoded ways of thinking and our outmoded ways of safety. This year, Coca-Cola said that they're going to increase their production of throwaway plastic bottles by 1 billion bottles. In 50 short years, we have inserted micrograins of plastic in between every grain of sand in every beach around the globe and into the bloodstreams of animals, including some of us in this room. That's outmoded thinking. From the planet's perspective, Coca-Cola, Warren Buffett, the shareholders of Coke, anyone that wears microfiber yoga pants or fleece jackets might be some of the worst criminals besides the meat eaters in the world. Our emotional intelligence and our worldviews are stuck in a past that is no longer real. It's a past where we believe in infinite frontiers, where we believe in the infinite filtration capacity of the sky and the sea. Those things no longer exist, and what does exist is shrinking. It teaches us that we are competing beings, that we are separate and not connected to the biosphere or each other. And this was never true at all. But it was a harmless delusion until about 100 years ago, when our technology and our numbers started exponentially rocketing. Okay? So my buddy would say, hey, whatever happened to that hopeful talk you were giving? I'm getting there. Okay, because there's a teacher, a new teacher in the room trying to wake us up. And it's the only teacher any species has ever listened to. And it is its own death. If everything is connected, which is what both physicists and biologists are telling us, then when you kill your system, you are killing yourself. And we are simply killing our system. In 1850, humanity weighed 50 million tons. Today, humanity weighs 300 million tons, and our livestock and our pets weigh 700 million tons. And wild nature weighs only a fraction of what it weighed in 1850. Looked at in this way, our cars, our 401ks, our bank accounts, our violence, and our toys from China are just a very, very complicated form of suicide. Dude, man, why would beings made of ocean and sunlight commit suicide? Well, here's the thing. We're not going to, okay? As we don't believe that we're a networked being, but we are. When an alcoholic hits rock bottom, that is the only time that he can actually gain some wisdom and change. You know, when I was young, I needed some fucking wisdom. I needed somebody to say, hey, stop it. Stop believing in nonsense. Anger and separation is not a way to live. Life moves from complexity towards complexity and relationship, and you should too. In 30 years, we may have more plastic in the ocean than fish. What we are doing is decreasing the biological complexity of the planet Earth. It's not just our president. We are actually making the planet stupider. Now here's the interesting thing. This change that's coming is inevitable. For the first time in human history, we have to look at our communal footprint. We have to find communal safety. Okay? We can no longer reach for our individual power. And the interesting thing is we have no choice. And this is new. And this is good. We need to give our kids permission to hear the call of the planet. You know, we could wait till we hit rock bottom. You know, it's coming. We know this. Everybody knows it in their guts. It's coming. Or we could end disconnection now. In my work with Alive Inside, what are we doing? We're taking young kids and we're asking them to sit in front of elders with dementia and wake them up, to face death with courage, to change. I've seen this 100 times. I was in Mexico City yesterday. I saw elders there who were so depressed, and then these young kids came in and gave them their music and sat with them, and their health began to rise, and they died. But instead of dying in despair, they died happy. And I was sitting there in my hotel room last night, and I'm like, holy shit, wow, that's great. That's something. So here's my little last insight, is that loneliness, I grew up thinking loneliness was a condition that all of us had to endure, right? Well, I don't think that anymore. I think loneliness is a disease. a disease of disconnection that we created and we can cure. How? Well, I say follow empathy and music, or anything else that you can find that goes back to the roots of life, you know? And I say reject separation and control. Move towards complexity and relationship, and become the biosphere. It's not the Anthropocene age, it's the biosphere age that we have to create. So, if you can end your own loneliness, and the loneliness of the planet, I think that is a proper ambition for you walking oceans filled with the light of the sun.